Well, I think it's an easy class winner and one that wins for fun here in this class. I think one that offers such unique look through the front one-third of his body, one that's shallow just in terms of his chest and shallow in terms of his blade, a big-footed weather that comes with the extras, one that's unique just because he's so bold in terms of his upper skeleton. Yeah, he maybe could make him a shot bolder just in terms of his outer stifle, but I think one that wins this class pretty handily for me. I think the close race is for between second and third here in this class. The young lady brings a harder backed weather that's just more opened up out of the backside of his shoulder, one that's a shot skinnier. You know, as we start to study in that one holds the advantage over the 1 and 3 just in terms of his stifle and his twist. I think if we could give that one just a shot more in terms of his upper skeleton, it would be an awfully nice sheep for that young lady. The young man's that's loose, and we'll talk that one as they get him caught out there. One that's maybe not as hard in terms of her upper skeleton. That one, lands in third for me just because that one gets a shot lower just in terms of her pin set. Not as bold and true out through her dock. Gets a shot longer just in terms of the length of his dock, so maybe exaggerates that one being a shot rounder out of his hip. But I think as you study that one's a round hipped one that wants to tuck and duck up under himself. The young lady that comes in forward brings a hard back sheep that's good in terms of his rib cage, wants to get more open just in terms of the shape to his blade. Gets a shot rounder just in terms of his blade. We just need to see that sheep come with more in terms of his upper skeleton. As we step in behind, he just needs to come with more. I think a really good class, a very good class winner. Congratulations to those 4 exhibitors.
Our second class of market sheep will be the medium weight market sheep. Today's exhibitors are Quinn Whaley, Heather Ingsler, Caden Borman, Levi Hollitz, Quinn Whaley, and Olivia Stromer.
I think, a little more challenging just to sort through this class because I think there's so many different types and kinds, and maybe there's 3 sheep in here that are similar, and you just got to kind of wade your way through. And I think as you start totaling up, I think the class winner that the young man brings is an easy class winner here. One that I think you just get your hands on her. That one's opened up in terms of her upper skeleton. Look and profile from the side is extremely good. One that's level out through her dock. She's a high presented one that's got a good clip job on her legs, and certainly a big footed one. If we're going to get critical on this one, we could maybe open her up, just hit the ground as we start to study that one going. She maybe wants to close up to the base of her skeleton, but I think one that's bold up high, I think a nice class winner to start. The young man that brings the blue sheep here holds the advantage just in terms of elevation at the point of his shoulder, and one that's more elevated and longer in terms of their neck, one that's shallower in terms of his blade, correct in terms of his underline. I think that one has a raw and a hard shape out of the backside of his shoulder. As we start to study that one out through his loin edges, that one wants to fade. I think a lighter weight sheep for that young man that certainly could hold some more pounds just in terms of feed and product in terms of his upper skeleton. We fill in those loin edges. I think that one's a good looking one. Maybe one that gets a shot flatter just in terms of his cage, but I think a unique sheep for that young man. The young lady coming in third, I'll be the first to admit, maybe isn't the freshest presented one out here, but when you start to study in hardness and rack shape and one that funnel or progresses out through their dock, I think that one actually holds some advantages over the one that goes in second. That's a hard racked one that's good just in terms of his upper skeleton. For me, as we start to study in that one from the side, wants to get in terms of his blade and dropped out in terms of his chest, we could pick that one up just in terms of his rib cage, and as we step in behind, make that one a shot deeper through his twist. A little higher presentation on that one. I think you could certainly flip that pair between second and third, and I wouldn't argue with you very long. The young lady that's going to come out in 4 with the blue sheep is another one that's creased up out of the backside of her blade. As we study that one in motion, she wants to rise up just in terms of her spine. Wants to get plainer just in terms of his loin edges. We just need to see more on that sheep for me today to move him up any higher. The young lady that's going to come next brings us a one that's good just in terms of the front 1/3 of his body, shallow in terms of his blade, and good in terms of his chest. Maybe gets a shot tighter just in terms of his flank, but one that I think we need to just harden up in terms of his upper skeleton, give him a shot more spread. And then the young man that brings the darker fibered sheep here in this class, one that just gets a shot skinnier, one that offers some look through the front 1/3 of his body. We just need to see that sheep come with more in terms of his upper skeleton. Very good class. Congratulations to all those exhibitors.
Today's class winner was exhibited by Caden Borman. Second was Quinn Whaley, followed by Heather Inksler, Quinn Whaley, Olivia Stromer, and Levi Holland. Next, coming into the ring, we will have our heavyweight market lambs. Exhibitors today include Luke Johnson, Zach Feld, Caleb Feld, Megan Schwarp, Jackson Kempen, and Jackson Kempen. Today's show would not be possible without our sponsors. Today's sponsors are Jared Wellick, Osborne Family Sheep, Farmers Trust and Savings Bank, Central Financial Group, family of Doug Adams, Mark Wellick, Gryman Livestock, Schmidt Livestock, Mike and Christy Preby, and Dawn Farms. They are also the sponsors of our trophies that are being handed out today to our champion and reserve champion. Please give our sponsors a round of applause for a good thanks.
Well, this is really fun, and I think for you guys standing ringside, I think if you were to step in the ring and tell me that one of these sheep needs to just win this class and pops out and says I need to win, I would argue with you, and I could argue with you a long time, because I think all three sheep are good. I'm going to discuss them and break them down, and then I'll show you how I like them. And the unique thing of a show judge is, there's no science to it. There's no right or wrong way. As you get into these harder classes or more competitive classes, it just boils down to personal preference and what you like more. I think there's three really, really good ones out here, and certainly all sheep that I think are, maybe next level than the county fair. All sheep that can go out and play ball at a bigger show than just a county fair. The young lady that brings the blue sheep, man, that one's tucked up in terms of his chest, and for a blue one is awfully unique. I think one that's shallow just in terms of his blade. You get your hands on that one. That one is opened up out of the backside of his shoulder. Maybe he's not the most ditched up and just creased up in terms of his shape, but I think one that's smooth in terms of his upper skeleton. You study that one out through his dock, and you want to talk about one that's got a big punch through his outer stifle. Hey, that's the one. As we set that one in motion, that one is extremely flexible off of both ends of his skeleton, and you'll probably hear a lot of sheep judges maybe just throw away some structural qualities, but I think we still got to keep these things built good at the ground. I think a really good, unique looking sheep that's awfully unique and flexible. I think that one's built like an athlete. Awfully good sheep for the one that stands directly behind her, just in terms of maybe look from the side, just doesn't punch you with any wow factors. But as you step back and really start to analyze in that thing, it's hard to pick a hole in that one. That one is so smooth and good just in terms of his shape up high. He progresses out through his dock extremely wide. As you start to study him out through his stifle and his twist, that one's maybe not the oldest out here of the three just in terms of his stifle, but probably one of the deeper ones through his twist. I think that one packs a big punch and still comes in a really good looking package. As you study him, and if you really want to break these things down and just get real critical, that one you could maybe say gets just a nickel more upright in terms of the angle to his hawk and where his pastern sets. But I think that one with a little bit of a different clip job and give him a little more bend to his rear leg, I don't think there's an issue there. I think it's the way that he's presented out here maybe makes him look just a shot more upright. I think a really unique sheep. Hard to pick a hole in that one. One that brings a lot of look and a lot of muscle. Hard to build ones like that. The young man that brings the heaviest one of the three out here, man, for being heavy and at the heavier weight, probably at what we would deem a finish point, man, that one's opened up in terms of his upper skeleton. Maybe of the three, he's the longest in terms of his blade and not the most tucked up just in terms of his chest. But as we start getting these sheep to a heavier weight, if you're going to call that ideal, which I do today, I think that one's awfully cool. You study that one out through his outer stifle and down through his twist. That one's probably is the deepest through his twist and just the boldest through his outer stifle. Now, do his bones match what he's got in terms of his upper skeleton? Maybe not for me as we start to studying him, but I think an awfully big and heavyweight sheep. I'd like to correct him, maybe just a shot, just into where he hooks his ham or his hip into his loin, but certainly a very nice sheep. As we set him into motion, maybe that one's the one that wants to come up, just a shot in terms of his spine and maybe just doesn't relax it as smoothly. I'd like to open him up, maybe just a shot more at the ground. For me, I like the young lady in the green to be your class winner, the young lady in the black to be your second, the young man will be your third. And then as we start to breaking down the other three sheep, and man, it's like I said, it's like bringing a BB to a pistol fight, because we brought some AK-47s here on the top end. Still unique sheep, and the young man that's going to come here in 4 is one that's got a good looking one through the front 1/3 of his body, just not as opened up in terms of his upper skeleton. Wants to get a shot plainer just in terms of his loin edge, but really good sheep for that young man. Just need to see more of that one today. The young man with the blue weather is one that's awfully cool through the front 1/3 of his body for a blue one. Doesn't have as much shape in terms of upper skeleton, gets a shot flatter just in terms of his rib. I'd like to change that one and smooth him up just in terms of his hock joint and how he utilizes his hind leg, but certainly a nice sheep. The young man that'll round out the class, maybe one that's not as stout just in terms of his feature, gets a shot softer just in terms of his handle up high. I think a really good class. Let's congratulate all those exhibitors.
Today's class winner was exhibited by Megan Schroep, followed by Jackson Kentman and Jackson again, then Caleb Feld, Zach Feld, and Luke Johnson. Our next class today will be the Lotto Lamb class. Today's exhibitors include Luke Lamb, Levi Hollitz, Evie Stromer, Grant Lamb, Emma Schmidt, Sarah Schmidt, and Heather Ingskler. So the Lotto Lamb class that's in the show ring right now is a little unique to Hancock County. It was started by our sheep superintendents, Jared Wellick and Mark Wellick. It's unique to this county because how this works is Jared and Mark pick sheep from somebody they know that's in the sheep business. It's the Edler family. And it's basically for all these showers that might not have access or might not have the connection to a sheep breeder or a sheep raiser. So it's kind of a way to get them into the industry and get them involved in showing a different animal that they might not have much experience in.
Man, I'll be honest with you guys. I had to kind of step back and take a break because I apologize. That last class that came through the ring really made me my heart pump, and it was certainly really fun. And I think as we get these Lotto Lamb classes out here, they're extremely fun. And, you know, they're becoming more common here in the county fairs in the Midwest. And whatever breed or whatever species you decide to do it with, you know, my home county, they do the catch a calf class. So it's the same deal, but a cattle deal. I think it's really fun, and it allows kids to get into a different project and try something new. Yet still, we're selecting them from the same breeder. So we would assume that, you know, most of these come from the same genetic lines, and so we're gonna allow them to grow their lambs or feed their lambs from the same genetic line. So it's more of a level playing field. And I think the one that we're going to start with, you know, maybe isn't the best looking one, but in terms of a cutability sheep and a bold sheep in terms of his upper skeleton, I think that's the one. The young lady brings a big backed one that's good in terms of his cage. You know, maybe as we study him, he gets a shot more belly than what we term ideal here in the show ring. I think the young lady is doing an extremely good job. Certainly got that sheep to a heavy weight and presented very good in terms of his upper skeleton. Congratulations to that young lady. The young lady that's going to come in too here is probably holds the advantage just in terms of look through the front 1/3 of his body, more extended out of the top side of his shoulder. That's a hard backed one that's raw in terms of his condition. For me, he gets a shot rounder just in terms of his hip as we step in behind. He wants to close up and funnel to the ground, but certainly a very good sheep for that young lady. The young man that's going to come in 3 is another one that's raw and just lean in terms of his shape, in terms of his upper skeleton, one that maybe gets a shot flatter just in terms of his rib cage, one that's tucked up in terms of his chest. He holds the advantage just in terms of levelness out through his dock. For me, as we set him into motion, maybe he wants to get more out there just in terms of his rear leg, doesn't utilize it as well as we'd like to see, but certainly a really good lamb for that young man. The young lady coming next probably has more product and spread just in terms of her upper skeleton, a heavier condition weather than the 2 that go ahead of her. We need to see that one come with more hardness of shape in terms of his upper skeleton, but certainly a very good sheep for that young lady. The young lady coming next has got one that, you know, maybe offers some look, is lean, a big-footed and a big-boned one, just doesn't come with as much product in terms of her upper skeleton, gets a shot flatter and just plainer in terms of the shape to that one's loin, but certainly I think a nice sheep. The same can be said for the next 2, and we can walk those out, young men. The one that the young man that's leading will lead out first. The one that's good looking through the front 1/3 of his body, and you could argue that one's probably the best looking one in the class. For me, he gets too upright in terms of the angle to his shoulder. As we study that one in terms of his rack shape, he gets flatter and narrower as we study him out through his dock. And then the young man with the blue sheep that leads out, we just need to see that one come with more in terms of his upper skeleton as we step in behind. You'd like to make that one bolder and deeper through his twist. Certainly a very good class. Really fun way to end the market show. Let's congratulate those exhibitors.
Our class winner went to Heather Ingsler, followed by Sarah Schmidt, Levi Hollitz, Evie Stromer, Emma Schmidt, Luke Lamb, and Grant Lamb. Are they ready? Next, coming into our ring, we will have our champion market and reserve champion market lambs. From the first class, the lightweight class, we have first class winner, Megan Schroep, and second, Sarah Schmidt. From the medium weight class, we have Caden Borman and Quinn Whaley. From the heavyweight class, we have Megan Schroep and Jackson Kempin. And from the Latto Lamb class, we have Heather Ingsler and Sarah Schmidt.
Well, I think first off, let's put our hands together for a really, really good Market Lamb show. Man, I'll tell you what, I remember coming up here about a year ago and sorting through this lamb show, and maybe we had the same numbers, or maybe a shot more or a shot less, but I think as the years passed, I think the quality of lambs that have come out here are extremely good, and my hat's off to the parents and the exhibitors and all the kids that are showing these things, and the kids that maybe didn't get to the top two in the classes, because I think it's a testament to those kids for coming out here and working on their sheep and getting better livestock, because I think it's made this show really, really competitive. And I'll be the first to admit, a few of those classes, or a few of the class winners that we have standing out here, you could call it a mocked state fair drive, because I think sheep that are extremely good and will compete at the highest level that they decide to go to, and certainly I hope those exhibitors are going to take these sheep onto those next shows or onto the next level. Sheep that are all extremely good to compete at the next level, whether it's a showdown or the state fair, or we're talking the fall majors. I think before we move forward and talk about the sheep, as I was driving up here today, I kind of got to thinking, and I was like, well, maybe I'll just wrap this show up and not give a drive speech. But there was something that just kind of kept poking at me, and I'm a kid that'll come out and judge, and I'm just going to do it the way I want to do it. There's no way that anyone can get to me, I guess, just in terms of making sheep win or making just livestock win a show, because I'm going to come out and I'm going to do it as honest as I can. I'm going to look at them and I'm going to describe them and break them down to you. But as I was driving up here, there was one thing that kept poking at me, and it happened to be, my brother is just graduated high school, and we do the livestock deal together. My parents don't help us as much, so it's just me and my brother, and we're very involved. We try to be friends with everyone in the industry, whether whatever species whatever species it's in, and we have a few friends that are in all species, and someone happened to message him and say, I heard your brother's coming up and gonna sort through our county fair, and he'll probably beat me. And I he texted me or called me that night, and I said, wow, I mean, someone to think that I'm going to hold things against them throughout the past or throughout the past, I think is a tough pill for me to swallow, because, I think as people and as a livestock industry, if we can become more forgetful or forget things that, maybe happened in the past and move forward, I think we're going to be a lot better off, because I think there's a lot of people in this industry that a bad thing happens and then it's automatically, I don't like that person or I hate that person. And, for me as a person, I'm a guy that forgives, and I want to be friends with, because I think there's so many good people in this industry, and there's so many good people that you can surround yourself by, and you can learn so much. It's awesome, because as a show judge, I maybe didn't show livestock as much as as my brother does, or the kids that we help throughout the state of Iowa. But the people that I've surrounded myself by as a show judge have made me break down and evaluate livestock better. So I think we can always learn throughout this industry. I think as we start breaking down these kids here in this industry or in this county, I think you get an extremely good set of kids and awfully good sheep throughout the day, and I think a very good set of them as we break them down in terms of quality. For me, I think as we start to break them down, it falls down to maybe a trio of them. I think we'll go ahead and discuss all of them, and I'll maybe hit some highlighted points. I'll tell you kind of which three fall into contention for me. The young man's lightweight wether that comes out, man, for one that's that light of a weight, yet still good looking through the front 1/3 of his body. You study that one at the base of the skeleton, and you can just tell the story from there. wide and opened up, where you study that one down at the base of his chest. He's opened up, yet still tucked up, shallow in terms of his blade. Offers a really unique look. You get your hands on that one, and he is opened up out of the backside of his shoulder and has a big round muscle shape there. You know, maybe as we progress out through his loin edges, just doesn't come with as much pop as you get right when you handle him out of the backside of his blade. But certainly a very, very unique one that I think is in contention out here. The young man's ewe that comes out of the second class is one that, we talked that one just being the levelest in terms of her spine and the most correct in terms of her underline. As we get her out here, maybe she's not the shallowest bladed one of all of the ones that we have out here. Maybe we could hook her neck a shot higher out of the top side of her shoulder. I think as we study that one, the biggest criticism that we get on that one is where we study her to the base of her skeleton. We need to open her up and just make her wider as we track her and set her up. But I think a very unique sheep that's level in terms of her design up high, has enough muscle and spread for me that I like that one quite well. Maybe one that just falls out of contention, doesn't have as much look through the front 1/3 of his body, not as busted open at the ground, but I think a very unique one. That third class that we got, oh man, that one made my heart race, and that might be the best class that'll go down throughout my judging this summer, because I think you got 3 really, really good sheep there on the top end. For me, the young lady's weather one, just because that one is really hard to pick a hole in. You study that one from the side profile, level in terms of his dine, in terms of his spine and square out through his dock. You study him in terms of his outer stifle and down through his twist. Man, that one is extremely bold. Still one that's shallow in terms of his blade and tucked up in terms of his chest. Maybe we could make that one a shot freakier and extend him out through, out of the top side of his neck. But man, one that wedges that tight in terms of the top side of his shoulder, yet still spreads extremely expressive, is hard to build. We said on that one, we could call that one's rear leg out for maybe being a nickel straighter, but I think maybe it's just the way that one's clipped or presented out here. I think when you study through the leg wall on that one's got enough bend and set to his rear leg for me. I think a very nice sheep. The young lady that brings a lot of lamb, certainly just a high-performing sheep that's big and bold up high. Maybe he just doesn't have as much show ring presence or look out here today, but certainly I commend that young lady for getting that one to a heavy weight, yet still fresh in terms of his upper skeleton. The one that falls second behind that one, a lean one that's shapely in terms of his upper skeleton, maybe gets a shot rounder out of his hip, but certainly a nice lamb for that young lady. The young man that brings a blue one, and I believe he had second and third in that class, because he told me both of those sheep's weights in that class, and I felt bad because I thought maybe he's driving the one that he likes better, or maybe he thinks that one's better. That for me as a show judge is just a testament that I'm going to use the sheep I like, and it's nothing against that young man, because he certainly has 2 really, really good ones on his hands. For me, that was the better looking one through the front 1/3 of his body of his pair, tucked up in terms of his chest. You study that one in relation to our class winner, opened up at the base of his skeleton, and just extremely explosive. As we start to study in that one, maybe he's so big just in terms of his jump muscles. He doesn't look like he is level in terms of where he hooks his loin into his hip. But I certainly think one that's bold and impressive in terms of his upper skeleton. He's got a really good look from the profile. As we set that one into motion, maybe he doesn't want to utilize his hind leg and isn't as secure just in terms of his hind leg. Little things sorted that class. Well, young man brought us a really nice blue sheep. The young man that's got the blue sheep standing directly in front of him, one that's elevated and long through the front 1/3 of his body, raw in terms of his shape, maybe fades just a shot in terms of his loin edges. We could just see that sheep come with more in terms of his upper skeleton, maybe a shot more roundness to his cage, but certainly a good sheep for that young man. The young lady that we'll talk about out of the lightweight class, one that maybe just gets a shot off balance, maybe just ran into a really high performance or a high quality one there in that first class, but certainly one that's raw in terms of his upper skeleton. We could pick that one up in terms of his pin as he gets a shot rounder and steeper out of his hip. I think a really good show. Let's put our hands together and I'll show you which 2 I like.
Your champion market lamb is exhibited by Megan Schroep from Class 3.
Can you set these up here? The slow down stuff for the goats. We gave the sheep ones out, like the goats.
And your reserve champion market lamb is exhibited by Jackson Kempen, also from Class 3. Coming into our ring right now, we will have our county raised class. All of these lambs are from Hancock County.
really cool class, and I think the breeders that maybe stand ringside or the families that are raising these things at home are doing an extremely good job. And maybe sheep that as we work on down the line just don't have as much product in terms of their upper skeleton, but I think all sheep are offer some unique pieces, and certainly the breeders in this county are in the right direction. The young lady that's going to start out had that second place ewe out of that first class, but man, I think that one's awfully unique. I think that one is moderate in terms of her type and her kind. She's shallow in terms of her blade and still comes with some spread in terms of her upper skeleton. As we talked to her maybe in class throughout the day, we'd like to harden her up in terms of her upper skeleton, but as you start making some mating decisions there, certainly something that can be fixed, because I think that one for moderation and just stoutness of feature and stoutness spread up high is awfully unique. The young lady that's going to come in second here is one that, is hard in terms of his upper skeleton. You get your hands on that one, he actually will really, really surprise you because he's lean and shapely and fresh in terms of his back. Maybe one that doesn't offer as much look through the front 1/3 of his body. Like we talked that one already today. We'd like to give him a shot just in terms of his outer stifle, make him higher presented out here today, but certainly a really, really good handling sheep for that young lady. The young lady that's going to come in 3 next is one that's lean and raw in terms of his condition, round in terms of his cage. For me, that one just gets a shot rounder out of his hip, maybe wants to tuck and duck as we set him into motion, but certainly a really nice sheep for that young lady. Just like to see some more pounds on that one. The one that's going to come in 4 here next is one that's good and looking through the front 1/3 of his body, maybe doesn't handle as hard in terms of his upper skeleton. We could give that one a shot more upper pin for me today, but certainly a nice sheep. The young man or the young lady that's going to come next offers a good look through the front 1/3 of his body. Maybe he just gets a shot plainer and more original in terms of his show ring presence, not as hard in terms of his upper skeleton. I'd like to relax him in his spine and pick him up in terms of his loin edges. Certainly a really nice sheep. The one that comes here next probably holds an advantage over the one that goes directly ahead of him in terms of shape up high. He wants to just get a shot flatter in terms of his forerib, more open in terms of his shoulder. Really nice sheep for that young lady. The young man coming next offers a really good look through the front 1/3 of his body. Just a raw and skinny green sheep, if you will. One that just needs to come with more spread in terms of his rack shape. We just need to give that one a shot more punch all over. Certainly a really good looking one for that young man. And then the young man's blue sheep that's going to come out next or follow up the class, one that offers a good level design in terms of his upper skeleton, good in terms of his flexibility. Roundness of cage is extremely good. We just need to spread that one more in his upper skeleton for me today. I think a really good class. Congratulations to those exhibitors, and hats off to the breeders here in this county.
Your champion county market lamb was exhibited by Emma Kuji, and the reserve champion was exhibited by Heather Inksler. Right now we're going to take a break to give Mason, our judge, a chance to take some pictures with our champions and reserve champions. Then we're going to move on to our showmanship class. So first into the ring we will have the junior showman, then senior, and then advanced. Give out rosettes to the reserve champion. That's what we did yesterday in poultry. It's up to you. Yep, it's completely up to you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start junior showmanship.
When you do the go show, I gotta tell you, there's a mess up with some of my numbers. Okay. It says two of the Goats My Family shows were born in December of this year. Right, and that's
one of the hardest things as a show judge throughout the day is probably not sorting, those tougher classes. It's sorting through these junior showmanship exhibitors because, I think as we move forward and we talk about these young exhibitors, I think they're all doing an extremely good job because they got to the fair, and that's the first start. And then they came back after a day of showing, and they wanted to show again. And I think that's extremely good that they want to come back out and get better at showing. And just get. I think you can certainly learn a lot of things. As we start to studying them and breaking them down, I asked all the junior exhibitors, I guess, I asked them just what their sheep weighed. A simple question. And I think it's something that we kind of got to know as we get them into the ring because, heavyweight sheep that's a little past his prime, you one weighs 160, and you'd realize why that one is where he's at, or maybe one that's extremely good, just not as cracked open in terms of his upper skeleton. Well, that sheep only weighs 105. Well, in terms of maturity, he's behind. So I think I think it's a good thing to know just as we get these youth exhibitors out here. I think all are doing an extremely good job. We'll go through them and kind of critique them and say some things that they do good, and then they can move on down the road. And I think utilize maybe some of the critiques that I have and better their showmanship skills. The young lady that is in the red shirt in the very front, maybe is one of the more relaxed showmen out here, and I think that's awesome. Maybe just in terms of what her sheep weighs, maybe we don't know that question, and it's okay to say I don't know. It's good to be honest and just be honest in terms of what your sheep weighs. Yeah, maybe, in terms of changing her up just a little bit, maybe rotate her body around on that sheep and get his head up and back. But, I think she's doing an extremely good job just in terms of calmness and how collected that young lady is. The young lady directly behind her, is out here and is trying extremely hard. Maybe as we get her start to breaking her down, we could get those sheep's back legs just kicked out from under him just ever so slightly and get them back a little better. And I think, if we rotate her around and get her to pick that one's head up and have more control of his head and his neck back, I think that's where, she'll get more drive out of that sheep. I think that sheep's got enough muscle in terms of his upper skeleton. We just need to see more drive out of him. Young lady's doing a really, really good job. The young lady in the red shirt directly behind her is another one, as we talked throughout the first two, maybe we could rotate her around and just get her on that sheep, because I think that's a raw, lean one that just needs to get drove a little bit harder, and that one can offer you a good look. Maybe just in terms of presentation out here, maybe doesn't have the biggest leg wall, and certainly, some of these sheep aren't going to have the biggest leg wall, but I think it's a very good practice at home to be rinsing legs and trying just to get as much as you can and trying your hardest. Maybe she has been trying hard, and that's a sheep that just doesn't have as much leg wall, but certainly would amplify his positives throughout this sheep. Young lady's doing a really good job. Another calm, collected one. I'd just like to rotate her around on her sheep just a nickel more and get more drive. The young man coming out just in terms of body position is probably more correct. I asked him in the drive of the Market Lamb show if he knew this sheep's weight, and he didn't know, and then we got him back out in here and he didn't know, but that's okay. He said, I still don't know, and that's more to me just saying, I still don't know, and that's fine. Just being an honest person, I think will get you a long way, young man, so I commend you for that. Just in terms of we get that shape, if we could jerk that one up out of him just a nickel more, I think that young man's got an awfully nice one on his hands. We could just get a shot more drive out of that one, but body position's almost in the right spot. We just got to get down and get that one to give us a little more drive. The young lady standing directly behind him is an extremely good showman. One that gets those feet set, one that gets that one's head collected and his head carriage almost perfect. She's the calm one that just is so smooth in terms of what she does. She gets that one drove extremely good. You want to talk about a high presented one just in terms of the homework done at home. That one's skin and hair is extremely good in terms of, when you get your hands on him, she's done an extremely good job. There's at times she maybe wants to get that one just a nickel overextended. And I think, as a youth exhibitor, one that can just get her head up and get that one, get her body pushed into that one is extremely good. I think she's headed in the right direction. I really like how calm and collected she is and gets a lot of good out of that sheep. She's got a really good one on her hands. The young man standing directly behind her, maybe just in terms of being a calm showman, is on the other end of the spectrum. Probably a more intense showman that gets after it just a shot more. And for me, I'm a guy that just maybe just a shot calm and we got to be out here and saying try to beat me, or we kind of got to have our game face on. But I think when we get calm, or when we stay calm and maybe aren't touching on that sheep's back, we can get more drive and just more calmness out of that sheep. I think that young man does an extremely good job. I'm certainly not going to tell him that, his intensity level is wrong, because I think he's a really good showman that gets a lot of good out of a good sheep for him. So I think as you break him down and study him, I think there's one showman out here that just does it for me, just in terms of how calm she is, how good she is just in terms of getting a sheep set. And certainly the homework's been done at home, because she's got a highly presented sheep that she's brought to the show today. The young lady in the black will be your champion, and if we're picking a reserve, the young man directly behind her will be your reserve. Congratulations to all these exhibitors.
Your junior champion showman is Gabby Campen, and your junior reserve champion showman is Quinn Whaley. Let's give these guys a round of applause. Next in the ring will be our senior showman.
Man, I think we get, we throw our junior showman back in here, and we get 4 extremely good senior showmen. So I think first and foremost, let's give all 5 of these exhibitors a round of applause. You know, in the sheep industry or showing lambs, you know, there's so many different ways that we can present these livestock and how we can tell these kids to, get down and drive these things. And it's what works best for the exhibitors, or, you know, what they're used to working on at home. Because I think there's so many different ways and there's so many different styles. As the show judge, you can't sit out here and tell, maybe one exhibitor that it's wrong or right. Either way, you wanted to tell them because I think there's so many different ways. And the parents standing ringside, teach these kids a different way at home. You know, we exhibited hogs at our county fair, and we teach, or I guess I teach my brother, and the way we drive our hogs at home, we drive them things with their heads up, and we try to elevate those things to the front 1/3 of their body. And the show judge that happened to judge that county fair actually told my brother that he needed to not drive that one as hard, or not show that one with his head up as high. And I don't know that that's right. I kind of have thought about that as a judge, because I don't think you can tell these exhibitors that there's a right or a wrong way, as long as they present their animal to the highest degree and bring the good, what's good out in that animal, and maybe hide some of those negatives in that animal. I think they're doing a good job. So I don't know that there's a way that we can tell these exhibitors, or a judge, as a judge's perspective, to sit out here and tell them that they're doing it wrong. I can give them my opinion in maybe ways that they can better themselves as they move forward throughout their showing career. But certainly the showmen that we get out here are extremely good. The young lady that brings the ewe here in the red shirt, man, and just in terms of getting that one's neck pulled up out of her and getting that one's ears, picked up, and giving her the most look through the front 1/3 of her body, man, that one is awfully unique. You know, we talked about that one in the class, and that one is so unique for how good in terms of her underline and how unique she is through the front 1/3 of her body. Now, if we put another showman on her and maybe you don't get that one's neck jacked up out of her, she's maybe a lower statured sheep just in terms of at the point of her shoulder. So I think that young lady, that's where she's showing that one out of her, is picking her up just in terms of her front end, maybe making her not look as low set through her front end. I think she does an extremely good job. For me, I asked this exhibitor, what are we changing about these sheep, or what do we find as their strong attributes? And I think all 5 answered extremely good. I think, she answered, we want to trim this one up, and that is true. I think we could maybe just get a shot more pop out of her just in terms of drive, but I think she does an extremely good job. I love how she presents that one through the front 1/3 of her body. The young lady standing directly behind her in the white shirt does an extremely good job. As we study them out here, maybe both exhibitors on each side of her maybe hold the head carriage and present that one's head and just their neck a shot different than she does. And I'm not going to tell her it's wrong, but for me, in my opinion, I like how either exhibitor does on each side, getting those ears picked up and getting that one's head picked up. She's doing a good job, and her body position's correct. Maybe we could kick that sheep's legs out and just get a little more drive and elevation out of him through the front 1/3 of her body. But I certainly think she's doing a very, very good job. Certainly worked hard on that project at home, has that one broke to a T. The young man directly behind her does an extremely good job. I talked just a minute ago about how that one, he gets that one elevated through the front 1/3 of his body. He said just in terms of this one's spine, maybe wants to get more relaxed. And I think as we stand them out here and we get them to drive longer, maybe that's where sheep start getting relaxed in terms of their spine. Maybe that one, if you notice it, you can pick that one's belly up, just in terms of rear leg set. As we have this one stood here, you've been doing an extremely good job. We could just get that one's rear legs a little more square. We could pick him up just in terms of his belly when he starts wanting to relax. And in my opinion, and I'll give you a little advice, if he wants to get more relaxed, maybe let up off of him, shake his head out, just give him a little up, and then get back into him. That'll collect his spine in terms of what he does. The young lady that came out of the junior division, I asked her the same question that I asked all 5 exhibitors, and I'm not gonna say that she should know all about her sheep and what's so great about it and what's maybe some of the negatives, because young showman, she said she'd like her sheep to set up maybe just a little better and drive for a little bit longer, which I think is good, because we could do that at home and maybe a little more practice at home just in terms of driving this sheep. She said she likes how this one walks and gets out and goes and moves for her, which is extremely good, because I think that sheep on the move is extremely good. Maybe she has some hiccups at times, but I think when that one goes, young lady does a really, really good job getting that one presented. And then her brother that would be standing directly behind her. These two, when you hit the ring, if you didn't know they were siblings, you'd probably assume it, because it's like clockwork. Both of them present them to the highest degree and get them presented almost the exact same. It's awfully cool that the young lady standing directly in front of the young man probably looks up to him and wants to show sheep exactly like he does, because he does it to a high degree. He knows a lot about this sheep, and he answered those questions to a T. And we could say, okay, these kids don't or just listen to me on the mic all day. But I think young man knows a lot about this sheep. Gets that one presented extremely, extremely well. I love how he presents that one when you set him into motion and then getting that one stuck. Man, he can do it to the highest level past a county fair. I think so as we start to study him, I think there's a extremely good showman out here. I think for me, the young man standing directly on the end with the blue sheep will be your champion. And then for reserve, I'm going to go ahead and use the young man with the darker fibered weather here in the middle. Congratulations to all these exhibitors. All are doing an extremely good job.
Your senior champion showman is Jackson Kempen, and your senior reserved champion showman is Zach Feld. Next, coming into the ring, we will have our advanced showman. We want to take this time to thank everybody for coming out today. We also want to thank Mason Edwards, our judge today, for coming up here and judging at our district fair. Like he said previously, he came from Albia, Iowa this morning, so that's a 3-hour drive. So if we want to give him a round of applause. We also want to thank our sponsors one more time. Our sponsors included Jared Wellick, Osborne Family Sheep, Farmers Trust and Savings Bank, Central Financial Group, Dawn Farms, Family of Doug Adams, Mark Wellick, Greiman Livestock, Schmidt Livestock, and Mike and Christy Puribi. So if we want to give a round of applause to thank them as well.
Well, it's been an extremely fun day, and it's been fun to work with the kids and see how this county's growing and the livestock are growing because I think if the trend continues just in terms of quality and the numbers, I think this show could get to be one of the toughest in the state because I think the exhibitors that stand out here have come through the ring all day. Are extremely good showmen, and you're not going to find, maybe as high caliber showmen and high caliber stock at every county fair throughout the state. So, hats off to all the kids that have come out here. First off, I'd like to thank everyone that got me up here to come and sort this livestock show. I'm blessed to be able to judge quite a few county fairs in Iowa every year, and it's so much fun because I get to go evaluate 4 species livestock and work with kids and just kind of see what kind of livestock are around areas of the state. As I kind of have reflected on today, probably one of the higher caliber county fairs that I've been to just in terms of the sheep game. Because the quality of the livestock are extremely good. We come from a very rich, or I guess I come from a very rich county in terms of sheep quality. And I sat in on our sheep show the other day, and I thought, man, our youth show was 5 or 6 deep there in the Grand Drive, and then our weather show. I thought there was, maybe 4 in the contention out there to win the sheep show, and I think, you throw the quality of the sheep in this county into, maybe like a county like mine that I come from, and it's extremely tough. And I think the sheep that are here are extremely competitive. Whatever county fair they wanted to go to throughout the state, and whatever counties they want to move for, or whatever level they want to move forward to, whether it's the showdown, the state fair, maybe even the national levels, because I think the family's doing an extremely good job at getting these things presented. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for getting me up here to judge. I'm extremely blessed to be able to come up here. I think as we get the 2 showmen out here for the master showmanship, and it gets extremely tough, and I wish I could pick 2 because I would probably try to pick both of them for grand champion or the champion master showman that the young man comes out here in his first drive here in showmanship, does an extremely good job just in terms of holding that one's head carriage and getting that one presented. You want to talk about a younger man that can get that one drove and picked up. I think that's awfully unique. He does a really, really good job, and I think, a very high caliber showman. Then the young man that would have won our senior division, man, we talked to him in class. If you're needing a showman to step in the ring and get one stuck, man, I think he could because the homework's been done at home and certainly has worked extremely hard at becoming the best showman that he can. I think as we break them down, it really gets maybe down to, the stuff that we're doing at home just in terms of getting their hides right and getting, being able to present these sheep to the highest level. And there's so many things that you can do at home on these sheep to get them presented. For me, I think there's, one young man that has worked extremely hard. He's got his sheep presented to a T in terms of skin and hair, maybe one of the best ones we've seen throughout the day. The young man in the blue shirt will be your champion. Congratulations to both exhibitors.
Your advanced champion showman is Jackson Kempen, and your advanced reserve champion showman is Caleb Feld. go ahead and get started with the goat show. First, I'd like to introduce our judge. It's Evan McCleary from Tipton, Iowa. He is a grad of Iowa State University. He graduated in 2017. His judging experience includes judging in junior college, and he also judges county and state fairs around the Midwest. For a full-time job, Evan manages hog finishers. Please welcome Evan to Hancock County. Our first class today will be our dairy goat class. Coming into the ring right now, we have junior milking does. Our exhibitors include Jaden Frank, Chloe Frank, Ethan Hill, and Julia Hill.
Get out here for our first class on the goat side, and I think it's a good one to start out with. It's not too many times that you see this many dairy females coming to a show anymore these days, and I think the quality here represented is probably pretty high when you look at most county fairs and state levels across the Midwest here and even other regions of the U.S. So the young lady's black and white doe that I'm going to start out with, I think does so quite handily. A female that you see from the side, she's probably the most extended, most elevated there through her front 1/3. Female that you study just in terms of how she ties everything together. She's probably the smoothest about her lines, smoothest the way she transitions there into each of her proportions, and for me, just the most complete one to start out with here. young ladies, Brown and White Doe, coming out in second. For me, kind of follows our class winner in type and kind. One that you really have to admire from the profile. You study her when she's set it in motion, and of the remaining three, she's probably by far the most soundest and most comfortable out here on her feet and legs. Now, comparatively, I'd probably like to lengthen her out of her front 1/3, maybe let her give her a little more width there through her chest floor and see that width carry back through her forerib, especially when you compare her back to our class winner, but still that's being pretty nitpicky on a nice one. Young man here coming out with the black and white doe, one that you really have to admire just from the body and capacity standpoint that she has. Female that you really have to admire just the way she's opened up there through the center portion of her body. But for me, she closes up there too much in her chest floor. She maybe wants to get a little coarser out of her shoulder blade as well. And for me, coming out of the into the skeleton too, she probably wants to close up and turn those hocks in a little more than I'd like to see. But still, a really nice one there in third. Young lady, the class, probably has just as much length and extension as any of them in the class, but you study her from the side, she probably doesn't balance up quite as well. As you can see, tie that neck in a little higher there than Shine, but for me, still a nice doe to round out the class. Thank you.
Your class winner was Exhibit Meg. Second came Jaden Frank, following by Ethan Hill and Julian Hill. Next coming into the ring will be our senior milking doe class. Our exhibitors include Jaden Frank, Chloe Frank, Julia Hill, Joshua Halick, and Ava Kepler.
bring out the senior dairy does here, and I think it's for me a little more exciting when you get to see and study animals in production. And 4 out of the 5 of these does look like they are. Young man, you guys want to switch with her? Excuse me. When you get to study animals in production, you get to see what they're truly made of and how they're going to stand the test of time here. And I think there's a few females in this class that I think are doing that well. I'm not sure the age on them myself, but the two brown does here are going to be 2 that I think are going to stand the test of time pretty well. For me, it was just a little structural differences that sorted this top pair. Young lady's doe that's going to win the class, I think, does so just out of the extension that she has there through her front 1/3. Female that you study her in her lines, she's probably the most parallel when you study her from the profile as well. And then you step in behind her, and I think probably one of the more impressive features about her is how her udder is attached and how complete and well assembled that is. For me, you get to studying these goats, and especially show goats, you see a lot of issues with the mammary system here. And so for me, big bonus with that female was just how everything attached there, how even spaced they were, and how fine that they were. Well, young lady's doe here in second, just in terms of capacity, overwhelms our class winner. But for me, she just doesn't up enough from the side structurally. Female that probably wants to get a little easier in her top line and probably doesn't get out on the hind wheels quite as well as our class winner. But for me, that's still a really nice doe. Young lady's black goat coming out here in third is one that I admire just for the way she's put together as well. Female for me that's a little small in her type and kind, and that's probably why I put her here in third. She just doesn't balance up enough from the side as well. But still a really nice doe that looks to be in excellent condition for how heavy a production she is in. Young lady's goat here in fourth, one that probably has the distinct size advantage, but for me, you study this one structurally compared to our 5th place animal, and I think she's certainly quite a bit better on both ends of her skeleton. A female that for what she is and what her size is very quite more capacious than what you see here out of our 5th place animal. Now, not taking anything away from the young man's goat rounding out the class, she certainly has the most length and extension, but for me, she needs to be opened up more and travel quite a bit better off both ends of her skeleton to move. Give these guys a round of applause, please.
Your class champion is exhibited by Jaden Frank, followed by Chloe Frank, Juliana Hill, Ava Kepper, and Joshua Halick. Now coming back into the ring, we will have our champion dairy goats from the first class of junior milking does. We will have Chloe Frank and Jaden Frank, and from the senior milking doe second class, we will have Jaden Frank and Chloe Frank.
I guess if everybody could put a quick hands together for these exhibitors. Bring our junior and senior does back out here, and for me, I think it comes down to one pair in my mind in particular, a set of females that I think are just a little bit higher caliber, higher quality type of females, and that's going to be your senior class winner and your senior second place. So I'm going to go out here and shake the hand of your champion in reserve. Today she doesn't balance up quite as well as those two. Thank you.
Your grand champion market goat is exhibited by Jaden Frank from the senior milking doe class, and your reserve champion dairy goat is exhibited by Chloe Frank from the senior milking doe class. Let's give these guys a round of applause. Next in the ring, we will have our market goat class. Exhibitors include Morgan Crayon, Colin Kuhn, Brooke Barkema, Elaine Welsh, Eric Bumgard, Becca Halick, Mason Graham, and Elena.
get out here in the class of market goats, and I think for me it's one that's challenging. You look out here and there's not one that really stands out in my mind, but they're all pretty similar in their type and kind. Young ladies painted up goat's going to win the class, and it's the freshest handling and has the most to the touch. Still, for me, I'd like to open him up there in his skeleton, both top and bottom sides of his skeleton, give him a shot more power, but still one that of the rest of the class just handles with the best touch to him. Young man's predominantly red goat there. One that follows my class winner pretty similarly. For me, probably of the rest of the class, the heaviest muscled, best touching goat of the class, especially when you get there in his rack. For me, that was a distinct advantage. And blonde-headed doe here in third, one that you really have to admire just the way she's put together. For me, she's not super stout, but when you get your hands on her, she probably makes up for one that's probably the greenest of the class, probably carrying the least amount of finish on her. I think if we give her more time on feeding, she'd probably move up a spot or two. The two painted up dapple goats coming out here next. Two that are pretty similar in type and kind. Both have quite a bit of length and extension out of their front 1/3. Both are opened up there through the center portion of their body. But for me, they're going to have a shot more muscle to move on up any higher today. And same thing can be predominantly said about the three rounding out the class. You know, goats that have some length and extension about them. But for me to move them up any higher, they're going to have to be cracked open there in their skeleton quite a bit more and given quite a bit more muscle to move up any higher. Give these guys a round of applause, please.
Your class winner is Brooke Barkema, followed by Mason Graham, Colin Kuhn, Eric Bumgard, Alea Welsh again, Becca Halick, and Morgan Crane. Next coming in, we'll have our second class of market goats. Exhibitors include Emma Gall, Jaden Frank, Zane Faber, Becca Halick, Mackenzie Darg, Luke Johnson, and Colton Munson.
get out here in the second class of the market and things get a little more challenging in a different perspective. You got the top end that I think sort themselves there quite easily, but for me they offer a bit of structural differences, and ultimately being a market show, I'm going to sacrifice a little more than what I like in structural integrity to use this young man's goat to start out with. You see him there, he gets him set up from the side, and that's one that comes together quite a bit better than what you study him on the move. But for me, it's just his excelled handle and shape that he has. He's by far the hardest touching, heaviest muscle to go to the class. So for me, I let that outweigh his structural integrity, but I would be the first one to admit I'd fix him right there in his rack behind his shoulder, bring him up there, maybe give him a touch more forerib as well. But still, really nice goat to start out the class. Distinct advantage here in my second place animal is that he's put together quite a bit better than what you see my class winner. But for me, you study him, or you get your hands on him, and he's one that just wants to get a little softer to the touch. He probably doesn't have quite as much muscle, quite as much raw shape about him. But for me, it was his structural integrity and the amount of muscle he had compared to the rest of the class that put him there. Young lady's goat coming out in third for me, one that you really have to admire from the profile. Young lady does a good job getting it set up here. But for me, just compared to the two ahead of him, he just needs to be stoutened up and given quite a bit more muscle and shape to move up any higher. Next two goats coming out are two that I like just in terms of how they're built through their front 1/3. A couple of goats that have quite a bit of length and extension to them. For me, both give up quite a bit of muscle, shape, and expression when you compare them back, especially to our class winners. And then the two goats rounding out the class are ones that I like just in terms of how their basic build is. Two goats that together just fundamentally pretty soundly, and part of that may be due to the lack of muscle, so they can move around a little freer. But to move them up any higher, you're going to have to crack them open in their skeleton and give them quite a bit more muscle. Thank you.
Our class winner was exhibited by Colton Munson, followed by Emma Gall, Jaden Frank, Becca Halick, Luke Johnson, Mackenzie Darg, Zane Faber. Coming into the ring right now, we have Class 3 of Market Goats. Exhibitors include Mackenzie Darg, Madison Mortz, Addison Hagena, Luke Johnson, Maddie Graham, Sarah Schmidt.
get out here into the heavier weight goats, and I think there's one that surfaces pretty easily, and it's the young lady's speckled up goat there. One that you just certainly have to admire for the way he's put together, how much length and extension he has there through his front 1/3. For me, by far the freshest, heaviest muscle go to the class, so I thought he was going to win this class quite easily. For me, though, if I was going to change him, I'd open him up there through his chest floor and maybe give him a shot more forerib, but still that's being a little critical on our class winner. Young lady's goat coming out in second. One that you just have to admire from a basic structure standpoint. You look at him, he's square on all four corners, tucked up there through his chest floor, and comes out of this, comes out from behind with a square set. But for me, I'm going to change him. I'd like to see him have a little stronger top line, maybe give him a shot more muscle compared to our class winner, but still a really nice goat here in second. Young man's goat in third's one that really kind of deceived me a little bit. Coming in the ring, I thought he had quite a bit more shape and expression than what he does once you get your hands on him. But still, for the remainder of the class, he's the freshest handling, heaviest muscled one that's still put together with some structural integrity. And the two goats rounding out the class have quite a bit of length and extension about their front 1/3. But for me, they're too closed up and too light muscle to use any higher. Thank you.
Your first class winner was exhibited by Sarah Schmidt, followed by Addison Henya, Luke Johnson, Maddie Graham, Mackenzie Darg, and Madison Mortons. Next in the ring, we'll have our fourth class of market goats. Exhibitors include Addison Fawcett, Lillian Thompson, Emma Schmidt, Abigail Paynoff, Jaden Frank, and Dakota Markle. In our ring today, we have Liliana Hill. She is our 2020 Hancock County District Fair Queen. She is a recent graduate of West Hancock. In the fall, she'll be attending Ellsworth Community College to study animal science, and she is the daughter of Jerry Hill. Let's give her a welcome. We also have Aubrey Upmeyer. She is our 2020 Fair Princess. She is originally from Garner, Iowa, and she exhibits a bunch of inside projects. So let's give her a warm welcome.
get out here in the 4th class, the market animals, and the young man's goat separates himself from the rest of the pack pretty easily. You can see he's probably the highest quality goat we have here in this class, and that's further elevated when you get your hands on him. One that impresses me probably the most of any today when you get your hands on him. I'll admit he is a little softer than what I thought he was, but still carries quite a bit more muscle than anything else in the class, and one that's pushing the terms of getting up there in weight. For me, he's still holding himself together fairly well, still tucked up there through his chest floor, still pretty parallel in his lines from the side. Maybe for me, he wants to get a little easy there on his rear 2 wheels, but still that's being a little nitpicky. Ladies painted up goat coming out in 2nd. One for me that follows up the class winner quite easily. Just get your hands on him. One that has quite a bit more shape and spread up high. One that you look at from the side and balances up. Probably the best out of the 5 remaining. But for me, he's going to have to be stoutened up and given quite a bit more power and look to rival our class winner in terms of winning the class. Young ladies go in 3rd, one that I admire from the side, one that's put together fairly well. For me, get your hand, and that's where he separates himself from the other 3 left out here. Just one that has quite a bit more shape and muscle, but like others, he's going to have quite a bit more shape and expression to move up a spot or 2. Then the young ladies dappled up goat here, one that you admire just from its basic build, one that's put together fairly well, gets out and moves around the ring with quite a bit of comfort and ease, but consequently that's probably due to lack of muscle, so he's a little less restricted there in his movement, but still one that has quite a bit more muscle than the 2 rounding out the class. 2 goats rounding out the class, I like just the way they're put together on their feet and legs, ones that get out and move with quite a bit of flex off both ends of their skeleton, but for me they're entirely too narrow and entirely too light muscled to move up any higher. But give these kids a round of applause, please.
Did you excuse that one goat, or did she just miss something? Oh, okay. Yeah, it must have misunderstood you or something, because you placed her last and she just left.
Our class winner is Dakota Markle, followed by Jaden Frank, Emma Schmidt, Addison Fawcett, Liliana Thompson, and Abigail Panoff. Next in the ring, we will have our champions of each class. From the 1st class, we'll have Brooke Barkema as champion and Mason Graham as 2nd. In the 2nd class, we'll have Colton Munson and Emma Gall. In the 3rd class, we'll have Sarah Schmidt and Addison Hanya. And in the 4th class, we'll have Dakota Markle and Jaden Frank.
Everybody could put a hand together for these exhibitors and the ones that were previously out here, please. I think you see them lined up out here. All 8 of these are fine specimens of what the goat industry is. Yeah, there's some that I change here and there, but for me, I think they're all what you're looking for in a market type animal. But in my mind, it's coming down to 2 in particular here for your champion. One that I think I've sided with pretty easily here, and it's going to be the young man on the end with our last class winner. The way the goat's put together, for me, just falls in line more with my structural integrity, and he's got enough mass and shape to go along with it. So I'm going to go out here and shake his hand and take another look for your reserve.
The grand champion market goat is Dakota Markle from Class 4. Your reserve champion market goat is Colton Munson from Class 2. And in third will be Emma Gall.
That's what I figured that.
Next, we will have our breeding meat goat class. First, we'll have our junior doe class. Exhibitors include Jake Burris, Brooke Barkema, Tiffany Sherwood, Haley Stone, and Addison Fawcett.
get out here on the breeding side of things, and it gets a little more interesting. For me, it's a kind of a top pair class here. Young ladies, black and white goat, for me, just is the more combination, more complete type of female. When you study her from the side and when she's set into motion as well, she's probably the most opened up there through her chest floor, carries the most center of body, and probably has the widest pin set as well. But for me, I'd still like to change her out of that hip and hind leg. For me, she maybe wants to get a little too short, a little too steep, but still a really nice one to start out with. Young ladies goat there in second, one that has quite a bit of look from the side, probably the longest, most extended up through her front 1/3. But you study her from the side, she wants to get a little shallower sided, maybe doesn't want to tie there into her shoulder very well as compared to our class winner, but still one that you really have to admire. Young ladies goat there in third, paint hip. So for me, she was probably the trouble one of the class. Study her and look at her, and she's got some cool parts and pieces, but you read her in her skeletal maturity, and she's entirely too quick for me. She's going to be a smaller, more moderate frame type of female, and so therefore I liked her in third. Young ladies, black-headed goat coming out next. I like just in terms of the way she's put together from the side, one that's elevated through her chest floor. You study her in motion, and she's one that can get out with some comfort and ease. But for me, she needs to be opened up, have a little bit more center body to move up any higher. And then the young man's doe class was one that I liked just from the basic build standpoint, but you study her compared to those four ahead of her, and she's entirely too flat and entirely too light muscle to move up any higher. Thank you.
First place in this class was exhibited by Addison Fawcett, followed by Brooke Barkema, Tiffany Sherwood, Haley Stone, and Jake Burris. Coming to the ring, we'll have our junior doe class. Exhibitors include Eric Bumgard, Jake Burris, Lillian Thompson, Dakota Markle, Reagan Fox, Julia Hill, and Liliana Hill.
get out here in the second class of does, and I think probably the two highest quality set of goats that we've seen out here, in the young lady's black-headed and the young man's tan-headed pair. Young lady's female, for me, is just the more complete. You study her in motion, and gets around the ring with quite a bit of comfort and ease, and that's maybe a little disadvantage as the young man's doe doesn't want to cooperate quite as well. But you see that black one from behind, and she's just quite a bit more expansive there through her midsection, and carries quite a bit more shape and muscle out from behind. Still carrying that in a fairly elegant package. Now, sure, the young man's doe in second has quite a bit more length and extension about her, but for me, she's one that just maybe wants to get a little flatter, a little plainer there from the side, as compared back to our class winner, but still a really nice one here in second. Probably another tougher decision for me came here in third and fourth. Young lady still there in third. Female that you study her skeletally and set into motion, one that's just put together a little tighter, probably carries herself around the ring with quite a bit more comfort and ease, but still a female that's going to have quite a bit more balance from the side, going to change how her hip sets into her and how that hind leg sets down there if we want to move her up any higher. The young lady's doe there in fourth, one that probably has the most performance and growth here in the class, but for me, she's entirely too loose in her skeleton. She wants to get a little top line, she wants to come apart, and she maybe wants to carry a little too much condition for me as well, but still a really nice female. Then the three goats rounding out the class are pretty similar in their type and kind. Three females that have some look and eye appeal from the side, just some females that need to be opened up and stop constructed if we want to move them up any higher. Thank you.
Your first place was exhibited by Reagan Fox, followed by Dakota Markle, Julian Hill, Liliana Hill, Eric Bumgard, Lillian Thompson, and Jake Burris. Next in the ring, we'll have their intermediate doe class. Exhibitors include Lillian Hill, Rye Yomis, Tiffany Shearwood, Tanner Boever, and Julian Hill.
I don't think anybody ever said goats were the easiest creatures. I think we've had quite a few goats that have been handfuls in here, and these kids are doing an excellent job. So if you could give these guys a big round of applause, please. Young man brings us a paint doe that I think excels the class just in terms of where she is in her maturity and the way she's put together at this time of day. Female that's by far the most extended there through her front 1/3 and carries that head up there pretty high for the age that she is. A female that's still really good in her rib set and the way she carries out her hind legs. For me, if there was one thing, I'd like to change her foot and bone size to match the top side of her skeleton. Since she's quite a bit more massive there, but still that's a really nice doe. Young ladies, does in third, two that are pretty similar in my mind. A few differences here, but young ladies goat, I think just a bit better there through her front 1/3, lays that shoulder in quite a bit smoother, and when you study them set into motion, she probably gets around the ring with a little bit more flex and ease. Young ladies doe there in third, one that's probably quite a bit stouter in terms of structure and the way she's and her brood doe potential, but still a female for me. Maybe wants to get a little looser there out of her shoulder, maybe wants to come in and close up there in her hocks a little more than what we see in our second place, but still a really nice doe. Young ladies paint here in fourth, one that you really like from the side, a female that's really feminine through her front 1/3, one that has quite a bit of center body and capacity, but for me she just wants to close up on the bottom side of her skeleton. She wants to pull those back legs under her, so if we could change her hip sets and set those hind legs out from under her, we can maybe move her up a spot or two. And the brood doe in the class is certainly the one rounding out the class. For me though, she's just quite a bit too heavy conditioned. She probably doesn't want to get around the ring with as much comfort as we see in those other females ahead of her, so I question that as far as her longevity.
First class winner was awarded to Tanner Boever, followed by Liliana Hill, Tiffany Shearwood, Rye Yomis, and Julian Hill. Next, we'll have our senior doe class. Exhibitor includes Liliana Hill.
Single entry here in the senior female class, and one that I like quite a bit. Talked a lot about extension and how well they're put together through that front 1/3, and that's because that's the first thing I see coming into the ring, and probably what's going to give me the. But still, it's the start of where their body type, how everything's going to flow throughout, and this female that I really like there through her front 1/3. She steps down on some substance, a foot. But for me, my issue is leg, a female that's entirely too short, too steep out of her hip, consequently wanting to bow out a little there out of her. Still stout and powerful. Change her out of those wheels, and I'd like her quite a bit more.
Our last class is our junior buck class. Exhibitors include Liliana Hill and Julia Hill. At this time, we'd like to thank our sponsors of the 2020 Hancock County Goat Show. Sponsors include Arnie and Paulette Smith, Dodds Land and Livestock, Iowa Meat Goat Association, and the GHV FFA. Thank you to our sponsors.
get out here in the bucks, and it's a class you really don't see at too many county fairs anymore for many reasons, but still we get out here with these guys and two bucks that I think you put into a commercial setting and they're going to do somebody some good. Young lady in the pink shirt there has the buck that I think is just a little more rugged, a little more than there through his head. And when you read his skeleton, buck for me that also when I got my hands on him spans quite a bit more muscle and shape down the top side of his skeleton. For me, my only issues is structure. If I'm going to change him, I'm going to make him stouter footed, stouter constructed to match the rest of his skeleton up high, but still a really nice one to start out the class with. Young lady's buck kid here in second, one that certainly had quite a bit more touch and expression on the top side of his skeleton than what I've seen in my class winner. But for me, you study him from the side, a buck that probably doesn't balance up quite as nicely as our class winner. Give these guys a round of applause, please.
Next, we're going to do our champion and reserve champion breeding meat doe. So coming back into the ring from the first class, we have the Addison Fawcett and Brooke Barkema. From the junior doe class, class 2, we have Reagan Fox and Dakota Markle. From the intermediate doe class 3, we have Tanner Boever and Liliana Hill. From class 4, the senior doe class will have Liliana Hill. And from class 5, the junior buck class, will have Liliana Hill and Julia Hill. You tell me. Okay. Okay. My bad. Okay, so he'll pick this and then we'll bring those back in. Is that what you're saying?
No, so this one more. There's no trophy for that.
Yeah.
If we could give these breeding exhibitors a round of applause, please. You get these 7 females out here, and I think they all represent what we're looking for in a female to put back into our herd or put into production. But in my mind, I think there's been 2 out here all day that have exemplified what I've been looking for, and hopefully you guys have been able to follow me with the exception of a few classes here and there. But for me, if I'm going to put a female back into my herd, I'm going to want her to be feminine. I'm going to want her to have some structural integrity, yet maintaining that power and shape that we see. For me, I like to play quite a bit more on the market side of things, so that's probably a bigger fundamental for me, and I think there's 2 does out here that have exemplified the females that I put back in my program. So I'm going to shake the hand of your champion in reserve.
Your champion goes to Reagan Fox, and the reserve champion is Dakota Markle, both from class 2. Okay, we're going to end the goat show today with our showmanship. So we need all junior showmen in the ring, please. don't even think there is an advanced then.
Unless the
come out here for the junior showmanship, and I think if we give these guys a round of applause for all their hard work today. Not just these, but from what I've seen in the sheep show and here throughout the goat show, kids from this county, or this district, put a lot of hard work into these animals, and it's exemplified out here in their actions and how well they do here. And I will admit there's been a few goats that have been stubborn and probably not cooperated as well as the owners would have liked or these kids would have liked, but still to be commended. I know back in my day, I probably threw a few fits when my animals wouldn't cooperate because I knew that was going to cost me a showmanship or a few placings, and these kids have been good throughout it all here. There's a couple kids in here, though, that, in my mind, what I'm looking for in a showman, have excelled or exemplified what I'm looking for. I went through and asked them a couple basic questions, how long they've been showing, how old they are. To me, I'm not going to ask them a bunch of showmanship questions because it's about exhibiting your animal to the best of its ability, of your ability, making it presented out here the best that it can look. And I think there's two showmen out here that have done an exemplary job at that, so I'm going to go out here and shake the hand of your champion in reserve.
Your junior champion showman is Reagan Fox, and the junior reserve champion showman is Rye Yeoman. Next in the ring, we'll have our senior showman.
for me, senior showmanship was one that rarely ever got asked any questions. And by the time you're this age, I think your showmanship abilities or your skills do the speaking for themselves. And all three of these guys have done an excellent job all day. Goats maybe not wanted to have cooperated for each of them at times, but still they fought through it. And I think they've made the best decisions on what goats that they brought out here. So if we could give these guys a round of applause, that'd be appreciated. I'd be lying if I said it was an easy decision, because I think there's traits about all three of these guys that I'd change. But in that same respect, they've done an excellent job, and all three of them are getting all their animals stuck right here, right now, and so they're making it a little tougher. But I think there's been one that's been a bit more consistent throughout the day, just getting set up, having the animals ready for me to view whatever angle that was. So I'm going to go out here and shake the hand of your champion, and shake the hand of your reserve as well. Good job, young man. You got the stone looking pretty good.
Thank you.
So your duties, you have to costume one. Okay, your senior champion showman is awarded to Dakota Markell, and the senior reserve champion showman is Tanner Bowover. We want to thank you all for coming out today. To end, we have one last class, and it is our costume class, and our exhibitor is Liliana Hill.
Young lady probably made my day there. This COVID deal has been quite the thing this spring and this summer, and it's made a lot of plans change and changed a lot of things for people. And the fact that you guys were able to pull this together and have a county fair for these guys is truly tremendous. But what made me laugh so much about hers was she's Carol Baskin and a big cat. So thank you for that humor today, and everybody have a good and safe trip home.